Coming to you from a cozy little condo high atop Old 4th Ward, Atlanta. Welcome to The Ron Show on America One Radio. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
So yesterday being Monday, I needed to do something. I needed to take my mind off of the nation's slide into depravity. I needed to avoid cable news. I needed to avoid social media, really, too. So what did I do to channel that energy into something? I looked at my bedroom and I said, I don't like the arrangement anymore. I literally spent a lot of yesterday rearranging my bedroom, reorganizing my closet, sprucing the place up, throwing things away that I didn't need anymore. And I got to be honest with you, it was very cathartic. It was pretty helpful. And I realized that was something that gave me a good bit of joy and was a net positive. My room looks nice. I've got sun coming in at the right spot now, and the cats seem to like it. There's a better flow. It just feels bigger. Closet's cleaned up. Things make sense. You know, when you take the time to do these sorts of things, you better your life. You improve your life and my mind as well. I really needed to channel some energy into something. I also, by the way, launched my Blue Sky account. I had been waiting on the invite. I thought we were still waiting on invites. No, you could just go right onto Blue Sky now. So I have joined Blue Sky. I know I've said I'm not going to leave the Twitter X platform, and I'm not. I'm just going to kind of keep the account there, keep my eye on the insanity inside the bubble. It's just Truth Social 2.0 now, essentially. But I am on the Blue Sky app. You can find me at Ron Show ATL there as well. What are some things that other folks are doing to sort of take their mind off of last week? A friend of the show, Melita Easters, she chimed in on my Facebook post when I mentioned that I did this. She said she's spending time with her adorable grandchildren and connecting with friends. My buddy Larry says he's doing a lot of swimming. Eduardo, power walking, meditation. My friend Monica Hebert in Louisiana is organizing a grand opening event for her new art gallery emporium. Nice. Tracy put up the Christmas tree and starting repairs on her house from the hurricane. That's a good idea. My buddy Steve, Dr. Steve at Coastal Carolina University, did the same thing. Needed to change the energy. Yes, absolutely. My friend Ben said, edibles and video games. Okay, all right, enough of that. Tell me at Ron Show ATL on Blue Sky or Twitter X or Facebook or Instagram, if you want to DM me, whatever, or 404-919-2725. Feel free to text me at the phone number, what you are doing to sort of change the vibe, to take your mind off of everything that's going on in the world. I'm going to reach out here in just a few minutes to Professor Jack Zabluck, who is a professor of communication and journalism at Tennessee Chattanooga, home of the Mocs. He wrote an opinion piece in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that we will dive into here in just a few minutes. Let me give you a little taste of what he wrote. In the fall of 2023, my university invited me to be the respondent to a lecture by Joshua Dunn, a political science professor at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, who was hired by the state on a six-figure salary to counter perceived left-wing bias among college professors. Arguably, I got the better of him, Jack writes, especially given subsequent events. But we agreed on the importance of free speech, even if that speech is sometimes offensive to those who see or hear it. The subsequent events hit me in January when I received several texts and phone calls from assorted Democratic operatives in Georgia asking me to run for office. A few phone calls later, including one to a former member of Congress, I was the Democratic candidate for state representative in Georgia's 1st District in the corner of Alabama and Tennessee. The 1st District, he writes, which consists of Dade and Walker counties, is redder than a woodpecker's head. I was wondering where that was going. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, the area's representative in Congress, represents the will of the people for these folks. I was selected to be part of Georgia's, quote, Fighting 50, Democrats running in red districts. We knew it was a kamikaze mission. My motto was, if elected, I'll demand a recount. My yard signs read, decency, not disrespect, and I had good discussions with many Republicans who were pleased to have a politician just listen to them. As a college professor, I've been a public speaker for 30 years, so I'm comfortable talking and mixing with crowds. It was all actually fun, Jack writes. And I got insights into our inevitable statewide loss when I was nominated, by whom I will never know, to be an at-large delegate to the National Convention. At the mini convention in March, I met many party stalwarts and potentates. I shook hands, slapped backs, and shared prayers. But my outsider status and my chances for getting anywhere became quickly clear. The leadership circulated information that required the delegation consist of women in the majority, a set number of African Americans, Latinos, LGBTQI people, and so on. I'm a white male heterosexual. When I asked a prominent African American woman, who was an obvious party leader, about my chance to participate more, she squinted sternly and said, "You are already represented everywhere." I made a well-received speech on the need to reach out to Republicans and others whom we usually don't reach. But as the 18 delegates and 6 alternates were named one by one, I felt like I was waiting to be named to the starting roster of the baseball team in high school. I listened for my name to be called. It never was. I was one of the 6 or 7 who didn't make the cut. As the campaign progressed, the disconnect between Atlanta and the northwest corner of the state became more clear. My county chairs and committees became my friends and mentors, as did Bob Herndon and Pam Woodley, organizers of the Fighting 50. Beyond that, my financial contributions and personal support came largely from high school and college friends in my home state of Connecticut and newer friends in neighboring Chattanooga, where I work as a professor of communication at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. You see where this is going. Let's bring him in. Joining me from Lookout Mountain, Georgia. Man, this is one of my favorite parts of the state is Jack Zibluck. Thanks for joining the Ron Show today. I read a good chunk of your op-ed in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and can I just tell you, having worked on a campaign a few times actually in mostly rural 7th Congressional District of South Carolina, I feel your pain. Anyway, so thanks for running, and really, I really want to thank you for this op-ed because I think it's illuminating. There is a lot of discomfort in the state party, a lot of hand-wringing about who should lead the party, and I noticed that your name was on the list of candidates and representatives who'd like to see a change in leadership at the state party. But first of all, your experience as running as a candidate, I mean, you sort of tripped into running, I guess, and then quickly found out some of the pratfalls of being a candidate for office, not just as a Democrat, but in the state of Georgia as a Democrat, in the South as a Democrat.
Well, I just got hit with reality. You know, it's funny. I've been a journalist for years and years, and then I went back and started teaching journalism. So it's odd to be on the other side. I'm just a little surprised, although obviously Georgia's pretty unique, and it's very Atlanta-centric. That's like the big, the big feel of all this. And the point is, on that list, that was presented to us through the Fighting 50 group, and the machinations behind it are all third hand. So I don't want to speculate, but there is internecine conflict between several factions, and I'm still trying to figure out who's who.
Yeah.
So that was really the petition was kind of presented with the expectation that there would be more participation. And so a few of the participants feel that they've been hung out to dry, you know?
Yeah, no. Like I said, this all sounds very familiar. I worked with a congressional candidate in South Carolina who wound up self-funding a lot of his congressional campaign in South Carolina. And I'm not saying it's a slam dunk winnable district. It's an R+11 district, but it's within reach. And I'm not saying that, you know, the state party or the DCCC has to like fork over hordes of cash, but resources would be nice.
Well, it was very interesting. Well, the National Committee really sponsored our 14th district candidate.
Sean Harris.
Yeah, Sean Harris. He spent a lot of time in D.C. and he had a campaign manager who came straight out of K Street, who was with him always. But he got a lot of funding because of his opponent.
Yeah.
From D.C. and I got some of that. It went through the state, through the county parties. They all got $5,000 from the nationals, and that helped subsidize me.
Yeah.
So we're getting a fair bit. They know we're out here, certainly in the 14th district. They know they're out here. And I've, again, third hand, heard that my current incumbent may want to take on Ossoff next time. So if that was the case, we'd have an open seat and a real shot. And yeah, Sean was pretty, is a real good candidate, and he's built an infrastructure, and so have I. And so I'll be back. So we're going to give them, depending on the many moving parts, I think we can give them a good run next time on the local level. Nationally, who knows? But locally, there's some movement because people are just fatigued of all the yada, yada, yada. And that's kind of what I found in my little campaign, talking door to door or just with regular folks. They want to see the job done, Democrat or Republican. The issues here is like every time Route 24 closes down, all the semi trucks come up and over the mountain and they get stuck in the overpass. Now, those are the kind of things we need to work on around here. Regional issues between Chattanooga, Northeast Alabama, and Northwest Georgia. And I know there are entities out there that's supposed to address that, but they're not doing it.
Obviously.
So they're, I'm here for the bread and butter, nuts and bolts issues. I'm not. I try to stay away from the partisan stuff because that just gets you into just crap.
But I think you're hitting on something that I've been talking about probably since 2022 when I launched this show in the heat of the Abrams gubernatorial campaign. That Democrats are afraid to take their message to areas like your House district area. They're afraid to go there. Kamala Harris did the bus tour. Remember how much noise was made about the bus tour? Oh my gosh, she and Tim Walz are going to go on a bus tour through South Georgia. It was Savannah. It wasn't South Georgia. It was Savannah. That was a very safe spot. Yeah. Yeah, they
not Valdosta,
right? I mean, exactly, or Vidalia. Go somewhere.
Or Columbus, or any of those places.
All of those votes add up when you're running for state electoral votes, or in Stacey's case, a state race.
And there are a lot of African American votes down there. There are a lot of little towns that don't participate because they've just given up.
Yes.
And you just give folks a chance. And there's enough crossover votes. The biggest block is still independents and unaffiliated. And we could reach them.
We have to reach out to them first.
We have to reach out to them, and then we have to stop saying the same old shibboleths that they've been talking for 40 years. Yes, we would like to do a better job for healthcare and for education, but you start to get into the weeds, and then but what we did ignore nationwide, locally, and statewide is the economy. And there is a simple answer to inflation, and it's called the pandemic.
Right.
It just interrupted the supply chains, and everything went up, no matter who you are.
Instead of denying it happened.
Never articulated that.
No, you're right.
And and so everyone just went, and of course, Trump and company just made us wear it.
Took full advantage of it. Yep,
yeah,
absolutely.
And that was the biggest mistake. It wasn't the candidate. It was are just, as James Carville said 32 years ago, it's the economy, stupid.
Yeah.
And we forgot that.
We did seem to forget that. Well, and I've made the argument here for the last few days now that, as you mentioned, saying things that are truthful, telling the truth, and just being honest with the American people instead of capitulating and trying nuance is the way to go about it, because we're fighting a sea of disinformation and misinformation, and the only remedy for that is truth. I'm with Professor Jack Zibluck, UTC Chattanooga professor of journalism and communication who ran for office in Northwest Georgia. Stand by. I'm going to take a quick break and come right back. You can follow The Ron Show on your preferred social media platforms at Ron Show ATL, Facebook, yes, still on Twitter X, now on Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, you name it. It's at Ron Show ATL. I'm with Professor Jack Zibluck, University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, professor of communication and journalism, who decided, I want to run for office. And so he did. He ran for a Georgia House seat, House District number 1. And do they number these things based like from left to right, top to bottom? Because that is just the very northwest
It looks
corner.
like it's kind of clockwise. But
okay.
after gerrymandering, it makes no sense whatsoever.
No, you're right.
But we still get to be number 1 just because there's no place else to put us.
And also, I believe you're the House District that houses Cloudland Canyon State Park. That is my favorite state park. And you know what? I'll hit you up sometime. We'll go on a walk up there if you like taking the walk down to the falls.
Love to.
Yeah, we'll have to do that. We'll have to do that sometime. It's my favorite state park. So you ran for office. You got about 20% of the vote. Is that about what you expected for that district?
That's basically what every Democrat running again in a red district got. I'd like to do a little better, maybe next time. Yeah. But the thing is, no one's run for this seat in 10 years.
Yeah.
And so I got 5,000 votes that wouldn't be there otherwise.
Yeah,
and that was
you said that in your op-ed. My 5,000 votes might not seem like a lot, but the difference between President-elect Donald Trump and President Joe Biden was less than 12,000 votes in 2020, and there were no Democratic votes in my district in 2020 because I'm the first Democrat to run in a decade, and I will be back in 2026. That's encouraging to hear. But but also a little alarming that nobody ran for 10 years on the left.
There are, I think, 40 odd districts that Republicans ran unopposed throughout the state.
I believe.
And so when you're trying to balance off the legislature, that just makes it that much harder. And that was the whole point of this Fighting 50 PAC. They identified 2 people who work for the Democratic Committee, Bob Herndon and Pam Woodley. They identified a couple of districts that they thought, well, maybe we could find somebody. And they found me because I was willing to flap my jaws in front of people. And I did not expect to get any phone calls or to be recruited, but it's an adventure. Adventure continues. So, there are people out there. There are good citizens among our Fighting 50. We had business people, several ministers. You think the Christians, the right wing owns Christianity?
It's not a monolith.
It does not.
Yeah, it's not a monolith.
And we had a really good young people, old people, a really good diverse group. And there are a lot of just regular citizens out there who are like me, who just want to do a decent job. And, and frankly, some of those people are Republicans. But, just regular citizens, do exist. And I'm finding a lot of them in both parties. But you hit a big one with misinformation. And that's only really happened since, guess who? Trump started the whole thing with saying Obama was, was not born here. And he used that, and people knew it wasn't true.
But I'll disagree with you a little bit in that I don't think Trump is the disease. I think he's the rash from the disease, and I think the disease came about from long before Donald Trump. I think the evisceration of the fairness doctrine and the advent
Bingo.
of partisan talk radio and the uprising of Rush Limbaugh and Fox News, wordsmiths like Frank Luntz and the evil genius that is, I guess, in some respects, Newt Gingrich. I think that is what brought us to where we are today, where we have this entire, I call it a right-wing ecosystem of disinformation that is spoon-fed to millions of people in various ways, for the last 30 plus 40 years. And it's something that I think that the left hasn't figured out how to pull together yet and use. And this is why, like, you picking up the phone and you having a conversation with me today is so refreshing, because I've done this for 2 years. I've been in broadcasting for 25 years before that. And getting an elected official or even a candidate running for office or a party official to get on the phone and have these conversations is really hard to do. And I hate to do this to you, but I've got 15 seconds left, so I'm going to take a quick break, and we'll just come right back here at the bottom of the hour. We're with Professor Jack Zabluck, who ran for Georgia House seat number 1 in Northwest Georgia and got 5,000 votes, and he's going to try again in 2026. We're back when the Ron Show returns.
This is The Ron Show on America One Radio.
We are with Professor Jack Zabluck, who ran for Georgia House District number 1, very northwest corner of the state. My favorite part of the state when it comes to, hey, I want to go to a state park. I say this all the time. If you have not gone to Cloudland Canyon State Park, you are truly missing out, a gem in the very northwest corner of the state. Professor Jack, thanks for joining the show today. We were talking a good bit about what it's like to run as a Democrat in a ruby red district, like literally pissing into a gale force wind, I think. But you did collect 5,000 votes for yourself that no candidate had tried to garner before. Do you think you flipped some folks in the process?
I think I gave some people. Well, I know I did. There was one person who, on the Republican side, who was in a primary, who did not like. Okay, I'll say did not like Senator Colton Moore, and she primaried him, and she came out and worked for me. So yes, there are people out there who just want to hear, and a lot of them who just want to say, "I want to get rid of the crap and just get the job done for government, for public service." And we were talking earlier about the little bit of the history. The real turning point was Reagan, who turned public service into the joke. Worst thing in American life is I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Yeah, it's awful.
That's the real turning point, when all of a sudden public service became a bad thing.
Yeah.
And then as we went on, like you were saying, Gingrich leveraged it, but who really put that lever on steroids was Trump.
Yeah.
He didn't care whether things were true or not. At least Gingrich knew when he was lying. But no, the Trump and company, they rode, first the Wilding event in New York City, and then Obama just got him in the headlines, and he found out it worked. And I'm still not sure how many conspiracy theorists can change a light bulb, but how many really believe the things they're saying? I think some do, but a lot of them just just enjoy the storytelling.
Well, I happen to think he does believe everything he says. I don't think
he does.
I don't think he's. I'm going to say something controversial. I'm not sure he's lying on purpose. I think he is just as much a victim of this right-wing ecosystem that I speak of as a lot of his base are. They don't know, and this sounds so dismissive, and I'm not trying to be. They don't know any better. I tell people this all the time. When I say that what you're thinking comes from a point of ignorance, I'm not trying to be dismissive or insulting. I'm saying literally look up the definition of ignorant or ignorance, and you will see that it's not a slur. It's just a statement. You don't know any better, so it's not your fault.
Well, and I know I agree with you, but a lot of the fault with that lies with us journalism people.
Okay.
We always figured our truth is self-evident, that the media is important because we have the First Amendment. And when the folks on the right started demonizing free speech and the media, we didn't answer.
Yeah.
We just, and you mentioned Limbaugh, he filled that vacuum.
Yep.
That was just there. Limbaugh was like you. He was a journeyman DJ, and he just latched onto this thing, and he knew he could run with it.
Yep.
And I teach media history. It repeats itself.
Well, look what's look
uses the same thing.
But look what's happening with the accidental podcast celebrity that is Joe Rogan. It's so ironic that we started this conversation. By the way, I was going to spend some time this week talking about the ascent of Joe Rogan, who I think is the accidental clarion of the right now, and he's not a conservative. He is a liberal. He is a pro-choice, pro-gay marriage, pro-pot legalization. He's a liberal. He just kind of got disillusioned with the Democratic Party, and I think it comes from his identity as a white male. Honestly, it's funny, when I was reading your op-ed, you sort of mentioned how, like, being a white male heterosexual in the Democratic Party can really leave you on the outside looking in and feeling like you're not either welcome or part of the solution. And I disagree wholeheartedly that we need to, and I'm not saying coddle white heterosexual men. I'm saying that we need to do better not to ostracize them and bring them into the conversation.
Well, they're still, they're still the biggest single block, or one of the biggest single blocks of votes out there. Yeah. And I get it. I'm all for diversity. We do need to hear the voices of everybody.
Right.
And that's how you make good decisions. If it's just one group saying this is what we do, that's where you make mistakes, because you haven't heard the alternatives.
See, Jack, here's what I suggest, by the way. I happen to be a white man, but I also happen to be gay. So if you will listen, if you'll just suck it up and touch one scrotum or peen or something like that, you can say you're bisexual, and then you're it. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that,
I'll defer to you on that. I'll take your word for it.
No, but seriously, we took some lumps. We took it on the chin with white male, especially the under 30 white male voter, who I think got a little radicalized, and if Democrats aren't careful, are going to lose a generation of, if they don't start speaking to their concerns. I'm not saying they got to placate or change ideology, but you got to start listening to them and speaking to them.
You have to open that. I know so many of them who are now middle-aged, who were just disillusioned, got tired of hearing, quite frankly, all the woke phraseology. I'm for a lot of what they do, but I'll be honest, one of my favorite things is pointing out that when we do Title IX training, Title IX is to protect women for equal rights and help them avoid sexual harassment.
Sure.
Well, we have to do the training every year to remind us what to watch out for. And every gosh darn example in there, Omar and Bob were dating, and then Omar breaks up with Bob, and should you intervene when Bob gets harassing phone calls? And all of the examples in the training were either obviously ethnic or LGBT of some stripe. And it's almost self-parody.
Yeah. You're right. I 1,000% agree. But I also think it sort of sets the left up for the attack that they get. I think the anti-trans attack ads that ran from Trump and his pack towards Kamala Harris. First of all, she never responded to them, and she should have. And it's a simple answer. That's federal law. That's not my position. That's federal law, and I support as a former attorney general.
There you go.
I support federal law. So that was the response. It should have been an easy response, and it wasn't. She didn't answer to that. And I think that anti-trans message actually resonated with a lot of that same voter I'm talking about, the under 30 white male.
Yeah, look at what they're forcing on us is something that challenges their masculinity.
Right.
And my problem is it's perhaps 2 or 3% of the population, and using that as a wedge for everybody else is really disingenuous.
And you don't have to abandon support for trans rights. You just have to answer matter of factly. That's federal law. You just have to. They're human beings. They have inalienable rights just like you do. And no, by the way, we don't have towering 7-foot former men playing basketball. In your daughter's middle school basketball league. It's insane. It just needed to be answered.
Well, that harkens back to Brown versus Board of Education. At the time, Dwight Eisenhower said, I just don't want a big black guy sitting next to a little white schoolgirl. That fear is people have been leveraging for 70 years.
Eisenhower really said that? Eisenhower really said that?
Eisenhower really said that.
Oh,
you can
my
look
God.
that up.
Yeah, I will. No,
when he wanted to get rid of Earl Warren. But the point is just fear-mongering.
Yep.
And my answer to transgender issues is also very simple. It's my same answer that I have on abortion rights. It's between the family and the medical community. We should not be involved. And far as participation in sports, again, psychologists and psychologists and various doctors, we should use the scientific information to guide us on how to handle that.
Yeah, and I'd also say, point me to where this is a problem. I mean, they're enacting laws and yeah, exactly. They're enacting laws that are solutions to problems that hardly exist. I mean, and they still go back to like the Summer Olympics, the boxing event, right? Well, it turns out that the winner of that boxing match actually is a woman. But that's again a lie that got halfway around the world before the truth puts its pants on. We're with Professor Jack Zabluck, who ran for Georgia House District 1 in the very northwest corner of Georgia. He's also professor at Tennessee Chattanooga. So what were some of the issues that actually resonated? You running for a state house seat that actually resonated with voters that you think actually moved the needle a little bit, that kind of warmed some chilly voters up?
Oh, well, really, in this part of the world, it's mental health.
Yeah.
As well as we always talk about our physical health, and that's always an issue with Medicare. But in my district, there is not one resident psychiatrist. Wow. So if you need medication, you need to go somewhere else or get telehealth, and it's next to impossible. And this is what the sheriffs tell me. And I have a Republican sheriff and a Democrat sheriff, and they both agree that we need help on rehab, depression. That's such a huge source of the crime issues that we have. And but by supporting preventative measures, we support law enforcement. And the state of Georgia is horrible on that. They have not, the mental health commission or whoever supervises that is next to non-existent. And so you could set up a clinic and call yourself a therapist. Well, you or I could actually. Once upon a time, I was, because I'm a doctor, I was recruited by a mental health clinic, and anybody could do it. And so there's no oversight, and there's very little access to again medication, particularly. So that's the one that really I was a little surprised that really resonated, because everybody knows somebody who is either depressed or has anxiety,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
or understandably so.
Yeah, especially in the last week. but but I also think that you're kind of you're pointing at what a fault line here that I think resonates in other cracks. I think that the lack of mental health actually creates substance abuse issues. I also
Absolutely.
think when you talk about crime exists where opportunity doesn't, and Northwest Georgia, that corner of Northwest Georgia, there ain't a whole lot of opportunity. And so crime exists again where opportunity, and that's not just like a black ghetto thing. We're talking about in rural Northwest Georgia. I know that district quite well. My ex-husband's family is from Cedartown, Rockmart, Polk County. So
Okay.
I mean, there's unemployment's high, which brings economic anxieties. Period. People who want to contribute societally in some way, shape, form, or fashion, but don't feel like they can because they can't even get up out of bed to get a job because there is no job. That comes back to the mental health aspect as well.
Absolutely. And that is and people know it. Everybody in their family has somebody who suffers, and on top of that contributes to drug and alcohol problems.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so that's one that I was surprised that really resonated across across all constituencies. Mm-hmm. And speaking of law enforcement, when I asked about messaging and whatnot, the law enforcement people told me there is not an immigration problem in this part of the world.
Of course not.
And that's our legislature talks about that, but that's just a federal problem,
right? And
B, we don't have busloads of migrants from San Antonio being plopped into Trenton.
Well, but law enforcement at that level is about to get recruited into ICE, into deporting, rounding up. They're going to be made to participate or lose federal funding that they get to participate in Trump's deportation plan, and that's the scary thing. I didn't realize you were a doctor, so I'll say this. Dr. Jack Zibluck, professor of communication and journalism at Tennessee Chattanooga. Back in just a sec on The Ron Show. Final few minutes with my guest today, Jack Zibluck. Dr. Jack Zibluck, professor of communications and journalism at the University of Tennessee Chattanooga, who had it in his mind he was going to run for a state house seat, and he did, and he didn't win because he is in a ruby red district, but still he got 5,000 votes, 20%, and hopes to improve upon that when he runs again in 2026, which I'm encouraged to hear. Dr. Jack, what do Democrats need to do at the local, state, and federal level to improve their electoral odds and turn this thing around?
Well, they need to articulate simple answers, because people don't want to hear policy wonk or explanations of what the Federal Reserve does.
Yeah.
And of course Trump wants to eliminate that. But no, what they need to do is come back to their traditional base of working class people who they have left. I talked about the whole woke thing in the last segment. That does not touch regular working class people, men and women, gay and straight. It's rather esoteric. And we need to do is, and to her credit, Kamala Harris started talking about the middle class, but then she didn't say anything specific.
Yeah,
she didn't say we understand what we would do.
Her opponent doesn't either. So let's be fair about that. Her opponent doesn't say anything specific either. And I would actually argue that Democrats didn't leave the working class. I think that the woke stuff is like the fireworks, at the July 4th picnic. It's all flash and sizzle, but people came for the hot dogs and the burgers, But I don't know that Democrats focus on it so much as their attack, the attacks coming at them focus on it, and it takes their eye off the ball. I mean, Democrats push for, family paid leave and push for, collective bargaining and want to see the minimum wage increase and believes that, workers, the CEO to worker, like that's the sort of stuff that especially Bernie Sanders, and I'll talk about. It's just that the perception is the Democrats have left the working class, and I don't know that.
Well,
They're just kind of fighting an uphill battle.
well, yeah. That what the problem with the Democrats is. Most people, including Republicans, if you take away the label, you give them Bernie Sanders or Alejandra Ocasio-Cortez's platform, Republicans like it. All the things that you were talking about, universal health care, collective bargaining, people like that. But the Democrats really need to rebrand themselves, and they have done a poor job articulating that their program is better for the working class. And then the Republicans then come in with a very good answer. How are you going to pay for that? That's going to raise your taxes, and then they demonize taxes. And yes, the answers are complicated, and one size does not fit all, but we're not even pushing the conversation. And that really, they have given up to the cultural elite. I'm from New Haven, Connecticut originally, and one reason I'm in Georgia is in my hometown there is this university called Yale. When I applied for an internship at the local TV station, didn't get it. Who did was Anderson Cooper. That's the world I grew up in. So I get where people feel that cultural disassociation. And the irony is that who really gets the opportunities are a lot of people on the right who have similar connections, who have money. And
the incoming vice president is an Ivy League graduate himself, and
he's a chameleon.
Yeah, a billionaire sugar daddy, so to speak. But
Well, you have, I give him a little credit because I know people who come from that background. My background's immigrant. My grandparents came from Russia, and families largely blue collar. Sometimes you have to be that facile just to get it. You say one thing to one boss, something else to your employees, and that's how you navigate the system. Vance doesn't believe in it, gosh darn anything, except himself, and that's how. And that's why Trump likes him, and Trump Jr. and Vance are buds. That's how he got in there. But nevertheless, you have to be a little facile in order to get ahead in politics. And actually, I have a little hope for Vance because he has been such a chameleon, just like Trump. Trump used to be a liberal. So hopefully he'll do what he needs to be done if something happens to Trump. So, but even he knew if he wanted to be in this position at 39, he had to get that Ivy League imprimatur. He was building his resume from the time he was 18. I give him credit for that. And he's no idiot. Whereas the Democrats just assume that, like I said, like my journalism friends, that their program is self-evident. We are helping people. We don't need to explain it. We don't need to talk in anybody else's language.
Yeah, no, I disagree. They do need to explain it, and they need to do a better job at it.
I know, but the problem is self-righteousness. That our program is obviously good. Therefore, if you don't understand it, not only aren't you ignorant, you're stupid.
And that's why
a lot of that dismissiveness.
Yeah, that's why. And I've got 30 seconds, so I got to wrap. But that's why I made the pitch for Pete Buttigieg as the messenger for the movement, because I think he does a really good job at enumerating it. All right.
Yeah.
So the website, you're going to keep it up, jackz4ga.com for folks who'd like to participate in the 2026 Jack Ziblack campaign for Georgia House District 1. Professor
All right.
Dr. Jackson Bluck, University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. Thanks for joining the Ron Show today.
This has been a hoot, and you won't be rid of me this easy. I'll be back. All you do is ask.
Thank you so much. I'll include his Atlanta Journal-Constitution op-ed in the show notes today at ronshowatl.com. Back tomorrow, 9 to 10 a.m., 5 to 6 p.m. on America One Radio, 11 p.m. to midnight at Progressive Voices, or wherever you podcast. Take care.